Hi everyone, welcome back to the Fuji Guy's channel. My name is Gord. In this video I'm going to spend a bit of time unboxing the X-Pro3, show you what's inside, as well as put it together and have some of the settings that I like to start with. If you want to find out more, keep on watching. I have an X-Pro3 in the Duratec black finish here. All three variations have the same contents inside. When you first open up the lid, you'll see there's a couple of QR codes on the inside flap. The first one is for the instruction manual. Pretty good idea to have that available for you on your phone. At that point, when you're out in the field, you can refer to the manual without having to carry around the instruction manual with you. The second QR code is for the Fujifilm Camera Remote app that's available on the Apple Store as well as on Google Play. You can download that for free and have that in on your phone, so when you're unpacking the camera you have it all set up and ready to go. Inside you'll find a cleaning cloth for the camera, as well as an instruction manual. Now depending on your country it'll have different languages of the instruction manual, as well as the warranty cards. It will really depend on where you're located. There's also find some information on Capture One. Capture One Express Fujifilm is a free downloadable software that you can use to capture and transfer and manipulate raw images captured with the X-Pro3 as well as with other Fujifilm cameras. Opening up the lower half of the box is where we'll find the camera. Let me pull that out and unwrap it. And inside the accessories is where we will find the strap, as well as the lugs to be able to attach the strap to the camera. Just a second, there it is. As well as a USB cable, that's a USB-C cable, and you'll also find a battery inside there. Just put these away for the time being. The battery will have a little bit of a charge to it, and we do recommend that you charge up the battery a little bit before you start using it to take photographs. And you can use that using the USB-C cable and then plug that into your computer to be able to charge it up. As an alternative, you can pick up a commercially available USB charging brick where you plug the USB cable in one end and the other half goes into your mains, depending on your country. Another option would be to pick up the BCW126S battery charger. At that point you can plug it into your mains or your AC and have it charging much faster than it would be in the camera. However, it is charged outside of the camera. When inserting the battery, there is only one way that you can insert the battery, and you line up the orange dot of the battery with the orange tab inside the camera. If by chance you put it in incorrectly, the battery will not stay in place and you won't be able to close the door. The next thing would be to put memory cards into the X-Pro3. The X-Pro3 does have two card slots and they both accept the UHS 2 cards. So those very fast cards that you can get with a very fast transfer speed. While you can use just about any SD or SDHC, I recommend having an SDXC, fairly high capacity. And make sure that that card speed is a UHS-1U3 or faster, especially useful if you're shooting with burst photography or if you're going to be shooting or recording 4K videos. Well, we're going to need a lens on the camera now. So the X-Pro3 accepts any of the Fujifilm X-mount lenses. So we take the body cap off. I always like to keep the camera pointed down slightly when I'm doing this. If nothing else, it helps prevent any dust that might be in the air from falling down onto the sensor. Turning it, pointing down slightly, makes it so that you avoid that issue. So here's a 35mm f2 lens that I've mounted onto the X-Pro3. Almost ready to power on the camera. When the first time I power on the camera, I'm going to have my smartphone available as well as have the app running. And what this will do is makes it a lot simpler when you're connecting the camera up the first time. If by chance you miss this step when you start it up, you can revisit it. So start the app on my phone, at which point it's going to ask which type of camera I'm going to connect. So I'm going to choose X System, and it's an interchangeable lens camera. And here's my model number. I'm going to choose the X-Pro3 and click on Add. Now when I turn the camera on and power it on for the first time, it's going to ask me the language, at which point I can choose the language that I want to. I'm going to choose English. Now it's going to come up with the question of pairing with a smartphone. And you'll see a QR code on there. If you hadn't already downloaded the software, you can actually use this QR code to be able to download the software and install it onto your smartphone. So the camera is asking me to pair with a smartphone, at which point I can click on OK. And on the app, I would then tap on Proceed. It does some initial communication between the two devices, and now I have my camera listed up here, at which point I can now connect up to the camera, and there's some additional confirmation that happens within there. On the camera, I now have it whether or not it wants to set the time from my smartphone. I always say yes for this, because at that point, if ever I'm traveling, wherever my phone is, it's going to have the right time on it. That will automatically transfer over to my camera. So I'm going to say yes on the camera. And I'm going to say OK on the smartphone. Next option on the camera is how it works with the geotagging and or the time. And I have a choice of ignoring the time and the geopositioning from my smartphone and only work and set the camera manually. Or I can have it where the camera will set the time from my smartphone or the location from my smartphone, or both. I like to use both. And the reason for that is if ever I'm traveling, it allows me to know exactly where any given image was taken, as opposed to trying to guess where a particular fountain or the inside of a particular church was. So I choose OK, and I'm almost ready to go on the camera side. And I am ready to go on the phone side. So on the camera, because I like to shoot RAW plus JPEG for my images, I now need to change that setting in the camera. And to do that, I've got a couple of different options. One is I can push the Q button and I can then go and make some changes in there. But here's where I want to do it the first time going through the standard menu. At which point I scroll to the second item, Image Quality, and there I can choose my Fine plus RAW files. And the reason why I did it in here instead is because the next line down, RAW Recording, you can either choose Uncompressed for that full resolution and full size, or if you're using a newer version of any of the software, including Capture One, Express, Fujifilm, you can use Lossless Compressed. This significantly reduces the file size, yet does not at all change the quality of the image. So I'm still getting that high quality image, raw file, but now I'm using lossless compression to be able to store that image. So that's one of the other things I like to do. Scrolling a little further down, one other thing I also like to do is have it so that even when I'm using the optical viewfinder, I have the image play back in my electronic viewfinder after I've captured the image. And I can have that displayed for either half a second and a half for continuous. That's done in the Screen Setup menu. So I go to Screen Setup, and then I would go down here on the bottom of the first page to Image Display. And here's where I choose a second and a half. So now after I've captured an image, the image will play back in my viewfinder, either electronic or optical, and I can review the image without having to pull the camera away from my eye. This saves valuable time in case something happens when I'm busy looking down at my LCD screen of the back of my camera. So I'm going to choose Image Display. The other thing I like to be able to change, by default, when you have the camera powered on the back of the camera is the film simulation and sort of a representation of the film box that you had from days gone by. It also shows what the white balance is as well as what the ISO is. I prefer to have a bit more numeric information displayed on there. So in order for me to change that, I go to Screen Setup, and then on the third page. Now, in order to change one screen at a time, I use the front command dial. If I use the rear command dial or the joystick, I go one line at a time, but the front command dial does one page at a time. And here's where I can change the submonitor, and I would change the submonitor from classic to standard. And then at that point, I can have it where it's more information that's being displayed on there, such as the shutter speed and a numeric display, as well as the aperture and ISO, etc. So now, I'm ready to take my first picture. It's just a matter of picking it up and taking that shot. So that's a few things that I like to do when I'm taking the camera out of the box, as well as putting it together and setting up some of the basic settings that I like to start off with. Hope you enjoyed and found out a few things about your new X-Pro3. If you should have any questions about this video, feel free to leave them in the comments section below, as we do answer any relevant questions. You can follow our YouTube channel and subscribe, at which point you'll be notified whenever there's a new video uploaded. Look for us on Twitter at Fuji Guys, as well as on Facebook and Instagram. And until next time, I'm Gord with the Fuji Guys. Thanks for watching.